I'm an organizer. And not the kind of organizer that like puts things in neat places or makes sure that everything has its space. I'm a community organizer. And what that means is that I work really hard to build strong leaders, to build strong organizations, and to shift power in my community and in the communities that look like mine, right? And I do this because before that, I'm a dreamer. I believe that the world can get better. I was one of those children that believes in fairy tales and unicorns. I'd walk down the street and say hello to the sun and hello to the grass. I loved rainbows and the magic of possibilities. I'm from the Bay Area. I lived in Oakland and Berkeley. I'm very much a child of the Panthers and the hippie movement, all bottled up into me. I was very lucky to live in a community that embraced that showed me that not only is change possible, but that it's my responsibility to help bring that. And I loved it. I reveled in it. I held on to it. And although I knew that the world wasn't that place, my world was. So although I was a kid in '92 and remember the riots in LA, or remember hearing about people getting killed in New York as a child, it just didn't affect me in the same way. I held on to this faith and to this belief and dreaming and change and possibilities, and I held on to it tightly. And I still do, because as I learned later, it's very precious. Because if you don't, you can lose faith. And there are 2 times in which I lost faith and learned 2 really, really important lessons in that. So the first one was I was a wide-eyed, bushy-tailed child who decided to leave the comfort of my home and my community and move to Colorado. And not just any place in Colorado. I could have been in Denver, where there's some diversity and there are people, or even Boulder, where it's a little bit more like Berkeley. But I chose to live in Greeley. Now, Greeley is a very small town, about an hour north of Denver. It's known best because there are slaughterhouses all around and the town kind of smells, literally. And I lived here and I realized, oh, this is a little different. This is not quite what I was used to. But I decided, even in spite of that, I'm gonna find my people. I'm gonna find my community, and I became really, really active. And I loved it. And a part of that was, I wanna get involved in politics, and I wanna get involved in the student government. And so I did. I decided to have the wonderful and apply for a position as the equal opportunity affirmative action person on my campus. On a campus that did not value neither equal opportunity nor affirmative action. And I worked with our student government, who were, first, all men, 2, all white, 3, all very, very, very conservative. And for me, I was excited. I was like, okay, let's get together. Let's figure out how we're gonna make this year just a wonderful year. So the first thing I did was I pulled us all into a meeting. And I was like, let's talk. Let's get to know each other. Let's build. Let me tell you a little bit about my position and what I'm gonna do here and how we can help each other and how we can work together. And I asked them to be really honest with me. Tell me what you think. What do you know? And they did something I was not quite expecting. They were honest. They were very, very, very honest. They told me that yes, they have privilege. That 2, they're okay with that. That 3, they don't plan on changing it. They understand that they come from money and that some people don't. And not just that they understand it, they're fine with that. They're fine with the fact that as an organization, I control all the money on campus and all of the jobs, but I want to make sure that I'm home by 6, so we're going to do our hiring at 3. Although there's tons of other people who that didn't work for, and they didn't care. And they sat there one after the other, telling me their truth. And as they said it, the air in the room got thin, my stomach twirled, and all I kept thinking is, oh shit, it's August. I remember calling my parents like, oh my God, they really exist. This is real. And of course, they were like, yeah, we've told you your whole life. And I was like, but I didn't know. I wasn't ready. And throughout the year, they made it very clear what their intentions were. So there were lots of groups on campus that were cultural groups or organizing groups like some of the ones that I was a part of. And they made sure with every effort to take away every dollar, to close every program, to do anything that they could to make sure that the white majority on campus did not have to feel our presence. And in that, it hurt. And I, as the one who was in between, who was a part of this, but also a part of them, felt the brunt of it. And let me tell you, they hated me. Like, they hated me like I didn't know I could be hated. They excluded me. I came into one of our meetings one day, and one of the things on the item that we were gonna vote on is whether or not my position should exist anymore. Because they decided that was the quickest way to get rid of me. They took away all of the funding for every group I was a part of, even the newspaper, because they didn't like what was being said about them. I got excluded from meetings, from events, from our end of the year celebration, to the point where 3 weeks before graduation, I received threatening phone calls and got called all kinds of names and racial epithets, and I knew when it happened, it was them. I left that state defeated and sad and like, this just can't be. Like, people can't really be like this. But they were. And I decided, I think I'm done with adults. I need to work with young people. There's still hope when it comes to kids. There's still an opportunity to get impressionable minds and help change them and help mold them and help them make their communities better. So I did. I worked as a youth organizer for years and loved it. And then one day, I got a call from one of these guys out of the blue. And I was so shocked. Yes, I'm one of those people. I had the same phone number. Easy to find me. I was so shocked. And he called me and he apologized. And it wasn't his apology to me and what he said that really got me, but it was the fact that he said that he'd been holding that he had felt it and regretted his inaction from the moment it happened and hadn't done anything. And that this holding of regret, this holding of privilege didn't just hurt me, but it also was hurting him. Years later, I'm working as a youth organizer, and as a Black person in this country, criminal justice system and law, you learn pretty early that things are a little iffy. So I had seen countless cases of young people being killed, but there was something about this case that just got me. I remember hearing about Trayvon Martin and thinking, how? This was a child, a 16-year-old who was walking home and who didn't make it there. Who, it wasn't a police officer, but some man who decided that he didn't feel comfortable with his presence and took him out. And the words "not guilty" were so much more than 2 words. It was him saying that you don't see the humanity that I see in you, and we don't see it in each other. That this man took him. And this boy could have been my student, could have been the child that I walk past every day, could have been my brother, could have been mine. And I lost it again. I lost hope and faith that change was possible and that people were good. And although I worked and loved my young people, I didn't necessarily love the work anymore. But hope was reborn for me with a tweet. I had a student from New Orleans tag me in a post, and on the picture, there was a boy whose body was on the ground, whose blood was spilled out, and people were around watching. But this time, unlike the countless times I'd seen before and gotten used to and gotten numb to, this time, the people in his community stood up. They stopped. They acted. They didn't move. And that town, that small town in Missouri now that we all know as Ferguson, changed the world. And even more than the world, it changed me. I was able to go down to Missouri and stand there and work with people and realize that there is power in action. That I can find not just my power, but my healing. Being able to directly confront those who have oppressed us, who have oppressed you, is healing and transformational work. So very often, we're in places where we are hurting each other. We are holding on to our fears. We are holding on to the privileges we have. But by turning and facing them, by facing the injustice, by facing the oppression, we can heal. So I found my healing in action. I find my healing in the streets. I helped form a collective called the Blackout Collective, and we do direct action trainings, and I love it. I get to go and shut down buildings and help people shut down city halls and highways, and we do it so that everybody has to stop and pay attention in the moments when it's so easy to just stay numb. But that's not everyone's action, right? In fact, it shouldn't be. So mine is in the streets, but yours needs to be right here, right where you are, right in your communities, right in your homes, in your classrooms, and in the boardrooms. What kind of action can you take? How can we collectively heal the trauma that we have in this country? How do we stop holding on to our privilege? How do we stop holding on to our fear, thinking that if we hold tight enough and exclude enough of us, that it'll be okay, not knowing that we're hurting ourselves in that process? How do we let it go and figure out what is our action going to be? What is our healing that we're going to take? How do you, if you have access to privilege, if you have access to jobs, or you hear people saying things that you just know is wrong, you have the opportunity to act and to stand up and to face that injustice and to face that healing. Because if we don't all do it right where we're at, then we will stay in that hurt and we will stay in that pain. So it is up to all of us here to figure out what is our action, and that action will heal us all. Thank you.